We've been lucky to be joined by the head of the U.S. delegation, Senator Cardin, senator from Maryland, and chairman of the Helsinki Commission.
Well, first of all, thank you. I want to thank the NGOs for not just hosting this particular meeting, but for what you're doing in regards to putting a spotlight on these issues. So let me thank Freedom House and Global Witness, the Norwegian Helsinki Watch, and the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. What you're doing is very important. Our major thrust of the work of the Helsinki Commission is to put a spotlight on areas that we think need to be improved, but also to show what works with best practices. And the NGO community is vitally important. So I just really want to first thank you all for doing this. Clearly what is happening in Central Asia with Kazakhstan taking on the chair of the OSCE was a moment in which we all hoped would show significant improvement of compliance with Helsinki issues. The statements made in Madrid by the chair, by the Kazakh representative, was pretty clear about the type of commitments that we expected progress to be made during the chair in office. We have not seen that met, and that's pretty clear. We are clearly disappointed that more progress has not been made in Kazakhstan. In fact, some actions are moving in the wrong direction. You mentioned the specific case, which I agree with. Our commission has been very actively involved in order to try to see that justice is done there. We also are disappointed by the passage of laws that would give immunity to the president and basically allow him to be president for life. And the list goes on and on of areas of our concern. So we're going to continue to point this out. We still hold out hope that as the OSCE moves towards the potential of a summit sometime this year, that it will be an opportunity for Kazakhstan to demonstrate its commitments to the Helsinki Accords. In regards to the initiative on transparency that was referred to, let me just give you an update. One of our major priorities within the Helsinki Commission and within the OSCE is to promote the state's compliance with and participation in the extractive industries transparency initiative. In the United States, we have a unique opportunity because most of the mineral companies need to do business through the stock exchange in our country. As I'm sure most of you are aware, mineral wealth has become a mineral curse for many of our poorer countries. They have mineral wealth, yet they're the poorest countries in the world. And what the mineral wealth is being used for is to finance corruption. And the first thing to do about that is transparency. Is to require the mineral companies to make a public disclosure as to the amount of money that they're paying to the mineral country. Therefore, all of us, including the NGOs, including the citizens of that country, can then start to try to trace where that money is being used. And there's a much better chance that the money will actually be used to help the people of the nation rather than finance the privileged and, in many cases, finance corruption. This has not been an easy task to get this legislation passed. There have been powerful interests trying to prevent it from being enacted. The legislation that I authored with Senator Lugar, a Republican, I'm a Democrat, so we don't believe this is a partisan issue in our country. Senator Lugar is the ranking Republican member on the Foreign Relations Committee, a very distinguished member of the United States Senate. And the two of us authored the legislation and an amendment to the financial reform bill that would require companies listed on our exchange, regulated by the Security Exchange Commission, to disclose their contracts in countries for mineral rights. Secretary of State Clinton has indicated that she thinks this could be one of the most important tools for the United States in its toolbox to try to help developing countries and to try to help those countries that have not had the advantage of their mineral wealth. So we are cautiously optimistic right now. It has cleared the conference committee. It's been passed by the House, the conference committee, and the bill will come up on the Senate floor next week. And it's still possible we don't have the votes to pass the underlining bill. There's always points of order that can be raised, so I don't want to prejudge its passage, but I think it's an encouraging sign that the support for it is now pretty widespread in the Congress, and we will get it done. We will pass that initiative. And I think it could be extremely helpful in dealing with the source of corruption in many of these countries, as well as deal with getting the wealth of a country to its people.
Thank you very much, Senator. Yes, Ms.
Azerbaijani section. Your reports are presented to your government, and yet business goes on as usual with all these developing countries, the countries that you mentioned. What do you think it can be done to hold those developed countries accountable so they look at their own business manners?
Well, that's directed to, that's the reason why I think it's important for the United States to act. There's not a real question as to government receipts in the United States on mineral rights. We know fairly well where those funds are being used, and we do have mineral right contracts with mineral companies in the United States. And yes, we are asking for complete transparency in the United States on those contracts. But that's not our principal concern. Our principal concern is for a gas company or an oil company to do business, they need to have access to the public stock markets. That's where their capital comes from. And if, as a requirement for access to those public markets, they have to disclose their contracts, then the United States is providing a real service. And I would also suggest Great Britain, because that's another major country in regards to the use of stock exchange, would be providing a real service to the developing countries by giving the information necessary for human rights groups as well as activists and citizens of their own country to be able to start tracing where the money is going.